So the basic assumption from team proposition is that just because a large supermarket chain enters a developing country and makes a profit, automatically means that the local producers and retailers will grossly be damaged. While this is completely untrue and we don't buy any of their ideas because they are logically flawed and miss important links. In this speech, first I'll be dealing with two small rebuttals because they have failed to provide us with any substantial constructives from their side of the house and no positive matter. Then I'll be moving on to a certain clarification of one detail which they fail to grasp, and then I'll be explaining two constructives. First, how consumers and corporations are grossly benefited, but finally, why there is a larger scale improvement on the longer run in terms of the economy in that country, ladies and gentlemen. So first, the two rebuttals. In first assumption, ladies and gentlemen, they come up and tell us is that, you know what, production processes can be improved by a country itself, by a local producer themselves, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you that is not true on two premises. First, because they lack the necessary capital to conduct enough research and development and develop a completely new production technique from scratch. We tell you that's hardly possible for them because they don't have the logistic support or the resources to carry out such a large project. But secondly, we tell you there's no motivation for them to improve because when, as they point out, the economy that all the competitors are on a level playing field, there is no, and it's a completely symmetrical economy. There is no necessity for you to improve and actually go out of your way to bring about reforms. This is simply because the producers are already satisfied and the entrepreneurs are satisficing with the profits they get and they don't look to improve or grow. We tell you this is particularly harmful because this leads to no improvement in the future and it leads to a stagnated economy. So we tell you product improvements will not come naturally and require an external force to drive it, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you when there is no drive and these people are unequipped, there is no way in which there will be technological reforms in itself. But secondly, their idea of exploitation doesn't stand simply because these large corporations are always under constant media scrutiny, where it's very difficult for them to go away with unethical things they want to do to exploit people, like giving low wages and giving poor working conditions to people, ladies and gentlemen. We have seen this example in Bangladesh, for example, when Nike tried to move in and had to leave because they were using children as laborers, ladies and gentlemen, without authorization. And these sorts of things is what essentially negates the idea of unethical activities and immoral exploitation on the part of these larger supermarket chains, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you there is already an existing check and balance mechanism which prevents these sorts of activities. So that deals with anything they might have thrown at us. Moving on to the ideas, right? First, you need to understand, ladies and gentlemen, there is a difference between a producer and a retailer. So every argument you associate these two as the same entity doesn't automatically stand. But secondly, is that, ladies and gentlemen, there will be a certain significant government involvement in such a scenario. Why? Because when there is a stagnated economy and we need reforms because we need faster economic growth under a status quo where there is a rapid population growth in most developing countries, ladies and gentlemen, the government alone is not sufficient to bring about improvements and improve the economy simply because they have so many sectors to work on. The moment these large firms can come in and have an interest to contribute to the country so that they themselves can set up in that particular market is when they can form contracts with the government to make infrastructural developments and overall bring about improvements, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you this is how they can form better highways, better communication channels, and make sure that everyone at the end of the day benefits from them. The government can make sure that these services are extended even to all the local retailers, ladies and gentlemen. And furthermore, the government may probably have joint training programs with these retailers the moment they move in, is because, ladies and gentlemen, now they have a positive contribution to the economy itself, and that is what will incentivize the government to do so. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the constructive first. Let's look at why corporations are benefited. We tell you throughout our case why there will be extensive diffusion of technology and there will be infrastructural reforms. We tell you there will be better for refrigerators. We tell you better fertilizers may be used and more and better production techniques may be adopted. by careful research and development on the part of the large supermarket chain. This is particularly important because, ladies and gentlemen, this will make sure that these sorts of technology and these production techniques are available in the locality of that country, so that it can be so that every single retailer and producer has access to them, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you that in this way the capital required is far less, because you don't have to start from scratch. You already have the base by which you can essentially improve your farm. But more importantly, it becomes also a necessity for local retailers, because now there is competition in the market, and a competition which requires you to be more proficient and have a greater amount of efficiency in the very first place. Secondly, we tell you that these retailers automatically create channels around the country so that they can extract products from all around and purchase them from all the producers across the country. We tell you this is fundamentally beneficial because more commodities are channeled throughout the country. But more importantly, even the local producers now have access to these products and commodities which they did not have in the past, simply because they failed because of the lack of these infrastructural reforms and these infrastructural facilities. But finally, we tell you even local producers who were catering only to the needs of their small localities and corners of these countries are also benefited, because they can now channel their products in mass amounts throughout the country. Thirdly, ladies and gentlemen, we tell you that the competition is not so unfair, and these local retailers can survive in certain circumstances, for which corporations such as Walmart have actually had to leave India because they did not find enough profitable gain from it. We tell you there was enough competition and the consumers were loyal enough to these local brands to stick to them, and that's how it may work. Even if it doesn't, we tell you these middle class retailers can go out and cater to a different population altogether, people who cannot afford larger scale products and cannot afford such expensive cannot afford higher quality products and don't essentially look for it, people who are in a lower class than the rest of the population, ladies and gentlemen, and they can cater to their needs and specialize in that sector. Secondly, the consumers, right? Why are the consumers fundamentally helped? We tell you that first, there is the idea of producing based on preference, for example, because these large corporations can go out and produce certain goods and services, and when they become slightly old, such as agricultural products and perishable goods, they can sell these at a lower price. Why is this beneficial? Because, ladies and gentlemen, we tell you this, when combined with improved storage facilities and refrigeration, we tell you the durable goods can be made far more durable and can stick for long periods of times and can be sold at low cost. We tell you this is beneficial because if these countries face problems such as hunger strikes, there will be enough food and at reasonable prices to fuel the necessity and the demand. Secondly, we tell you that when there is a lower cost for your Griffin products and necessary goods and services in these supermarket chains, is when these consumers will be able to go out and fulfill more of their desires in other sectors of the economy, where they can obtain different services such as going out to restaurants to eat, and they will be able to fuel their expenditure in such ways which will essentially lead to better economic output in the very first place. But finally, we tell you will have better movement of products and have better imports at lower prices. So we tell you consumer satisfaction is absolutely at its max under this particular model. Now on to the final idea. We tell you that when these large firms can enter a country and sustain in it, when they show that there is sustainable growth and there is enough market for them to move in and make profitable gain, is when even other firms will have a certain amount of interest in moving into these countries and coming in with more FDI and more investment, ladies and gentlemen. We tell you if greater firms enter, this country can only benefit, and for economic expansion this is particularly important. But furthermore, we tell you forming economic ties with large nations is important in times of crisis where you need different sorts of aids. What have we shown you from team opposition? We have shown you a mass scale of benefits for economic reason, in terms of the economy, and some in terms of the society itself, while team proposition provides us with a shallow case which is hardly analyzed. And we tell you under these conditions, team opposition deserves to